Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the webinar on the topic of uh, the importance of data privacy and security in higher ed. Basically, talking a little bit about protecting and safeguarding the student information in the digital age. This session is brought to you by Camu. We are an edtech solution provider offering unified SAS and LMS on the cloud. We are very thankful we have attendees coming across Philippines, Malaysia, India, and rest of the world. Thank you for taking the opportunity to be a part of the session. Now, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the day, Mouli Kumar. He's the co-founder and CTO of Camu. To give a brief background about him, Mouli is an architect and hands-on technologist. He adopted the MeanStack as the development platform for Camu in 2013 at a very early stage. Under his guidance, Camu has rolled out multiple projects across the globe. His areas of focus continue to remain building an innovative, simplified solution for higher ed. And Mouli drives the tech innovation for Camu EdTech. Thank you, Mouli, for accepting to moderate the session. We are delighted to welcome you. Do you want to say hello, Mouli?
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Also, I would like to invite our speakers for the day, Professor Dato, Dr. M.D. Gapar, Senior Vice President, System, Technology, Innovation Management and Science University, Malaysia. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Dr.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, welcome to you. Thank you very much for inviting me for this session.
Thank you. Thank you for.
Yeah, so that's I'm in the at the University Management and Science University in charge of system and technology, and so definitely the component of data privacy and security is the important parts that we have to go into in terms of managing the student data as a whole. I think that's just a start before we go further.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining. Yeah, Hemalatha Murugiah, Chief Executive, INTI International College, Penang. Ma'am, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invite. Looking ahead to learn as well from all the panels today.
Yeah, thank you. And also I'd like to welcome Rodelio Barcenas, Head ICT Project Management and Software Development Unit, the University of Asia and the Pacific. Do you want to say hello to everybody, Rodelio?
Hey, hello to everyone. Thank you for inviting me in this webinar, and I hope I can share another perspective regarding the information security. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Your voice is a bit feeble. You may want to check the mic. And also, I'd like to invite our speaker, Swee Leng Tan, Olivia, Director of Technology Transfer Office, Multimedia University. Thank you for joining us today, ma'am.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Caroline and Camu as well. This topic is very important, even at the University of Multimedia and at the technology. As a Director of Technology Transfer Office, we actually look into safeguarding our student informations and also encouraging, safe research as well. So this topic is definitely, I'm looking forward to share, and also to learn from everyone here, my fellow colleagues here as well. Right, thank you.
Thank you. We are looking forward to a great session as well. Before we could, jump into the panel discussion, I want to give a brief introduction to Camu. Camu offers a unified student management system and a learning management solution on the cloud. We've been in the market for the last 10 years, and we are serving close to about 500 plus institutions across 11 countries. And the product is currently accessed to over 1.5 million students and 60,000 teaching staff across the globe. And Camu is basically designed keeping in mind with the evolving needs of the academic institution. We also have incorporated some learning concepts such as, choice-based credit system, outcome-based education, accreditation, and campus administration. So coming to the key topic of today, the most important and relevant subject for discussion today. So today the higher education are presented with unique challenges when collecting and processing data for various purposes, be it administrative processes or for learning solution and research. So there's a copious amount of data is getting processed in higher ed. So also today we see the technology is increasingly embedded within higher education. So therefore, the universities are obligated to safeguard the student information, both from ethical as well as the technical perspective. So therefore, it becomes extremely critical to understand basically the regulatory updates, implementing data privacy best practices to protect the student information. So we thought it's a topic that we need to discuss, and therefore we have experts to move forward with the panel discussion. Without any further delay, let me invite Mouli to get started with the session. So to just briefly explain the agenda for the day, we'll have a panel discussion starting with Mouli, will be moderated by him. At the end of the session, we have about 10 minutes for the attendees to ask questions. Please, type in your questions in the Q&A window. We will take it as soon as the session is over or whenever it is, when we have time. Thank you all very much. And I hand over the session to Mouli.
So thank you so much, everyone who has joined this session this morning. Thank you so much to all my co-panelists in this today's discussion about student data protection. This is a very, very important topic. We will see why this is an important topic, and we will try to share some ideas on how we can safeguard the data and what is the implications of not focusing on this particular aspect of digitization today. So let's go into the presentation. So just to present you all with some data of what is happening currently across the world. The schools specifically are being targeted heavily by the attackers. So there are hundreds and thousands of breaches that are happening across the world. So while there is a lot of data that is not recorded about the attacks, the data, just the data that is recorded about the attacks, if you look at it, it's kind of very scary. So just looking at the United States alone, there are about 37 million records that were stolen by the attackers. And there are about 3,700 attacks that were done. So as you can see in the chart in the bottom of the right side of your screen, in the last 4 years, the attacks have been very, very high. And we all know the reason for that. The digitization has taken a very, very high pace in the last few years. And obviously, the attacks have also increased. So just looking a bit more into that data, 2023 has been a record-breaking year for US schools in terms of the data breach. The number of breaches, about 7 times more number of breaches compared to the 2022 attacks just in the America alone. So the reason why this data is projected here is because the US at least have a lot of rules and regulations for the schools to mandatorily publish the attacks that happen. So the regulations mandate the schools to publicly put that data out, that the data is breached. Similar practices are being brought into many other countries as well. So once we have that, and once once the schools are able to identify the data breaches. The biggest challenge that the schools currently have is also to be able to identify whether their data is breached. So when you look at this data, this is scary. This is not a this is no more a domain that is ignored by the attackers. This is one of the most important domain where a lot of personal data is collected about the student, about the parents, about the guardians. So including the students' birth details to their current addresses, their previous addresses, their parents' addresses, their credit cards information. So there is a lot of information that is collected and stored by the schools for the reasons that we all know, to be able to help the students complete their education and to be able to help the parents take certain actions. So the current scenario is scary, looking at the number of breaches that are happening. So what's actually causing the sudden increase in the number of threats that you're all seeing? So the education has become data driven. So it has always been data driven, but the data was with the academicians primarily. So the data was maintained by the academicians. It was their data in their personal notebook. Now there is a lot of data that is being digitized. You have systems that track the students' behavior. You have systems that track the student attendance. You have systems that track the students' academic standing at any given point of time, how much time the student is spending on a topic that you give them. So there is a lot of data that is being collected. When it comes to the student accounts data, the online payments coming into the picture where the parents and the students make online payments. So there's obviously a lot of financial data that is being also collected. So as you know, with all this data being in the scope, the threats are escalating. So hackers now see this as a very easy source of attacking, because as we all know, the digitization in education is not as advanced as like banking or insurance or any other major industries. So still there is a lot of education that needs to be provided to the students and parents to safeguard their data, and also to the institutions. So the impact of these threats, once the data is stolen by someone, and if the institutes are able to identify these data breaches, the impact is very severe. Most of the times the impact is financial, where the attackers demand for ransom, and also if the schools deny paying them, and the data goes out into the public, and that becomes available to everyone else in the dark web. So that means a lot of other attackers can start using that data for you can imagine the reasons that they can use that data for. And also one of the other major impact that the educational institutes will have when there is a breach is the downtime that they will have to have, because if their learning management or if their administrative system is breached, most of the times this breach may not just be stealing the data. This could be stealing and locking down the system. So what happens is the attackers will lock down access to your own users, and you will not be able to access the data that you own. So unless you go through the process of getting back your access, the entire operations could be down for days to weeks. So there is a lot of impact, obviously. As if you look at the data that are being stolen by the attackers, we all know the personal data is very important. So that's when we say personal data that is used for identifying a particular person. So, for example, a social security number or a passport data or an Aadhaar number or any kind of information with which you can identify a person has to be safeguarded. With that information, attackers now can correlate that with other data that is existing in the web to be able to pose threats to the people. So this data includes the more often the educational institutes are required to collect the medical records and health conditions of the students and record that. So that data is a danger. And the personal data of the staff, parents, and guardians, and credit card information, like we discussed earlier. So keeping this data safe is extremely important. Like we discussed, the disruption in your operations that will happen when the attack happens, and the reputation of the institution that gets damaged. Obviously, that's a very obvious point that the data that is not safeguarded will be trusting that educational institute again for the parents and the students will become a challenge. Also some of the reasons why this is currently happening is the rapid digital shift in the last 3-4 years, as you could see in the first slide. So the attacks have been multifold. So the reason for that is now the education, there is a big shift in the education, online education. So there is a lot of data that is being collected and put into the digital records. And also the legacy systems that are definitely not built for the current requirements of the current security requirements that are being practiced, and they pose a lot of vulnerabilities in terms of simple things like how their password management policies are, how their the encryption algorithms are. So there are a lot of challenges that the legacy systems pose. Most of the times, the in-house developed systems where there is no continuancy of the operations of that IT system itself pose a lot of vulnerabilities. There are also a lot of systems in a single education. If you see, there are 10, 12, 13 different IT systems that are being used on day to day. So what happens is the data that gets transferred from one system to another system. So there are a lot of vulnerabilities again when you have multiple systems. So it is very important to identify an IT system that can do most of your operations in one particular IT system. So if you have a student information system, and then if you have a learning management system separately, the data that has to flow from these two systems. Again, unfortunately, we are still in a growing phase, the education digital industry, where there are no strict standards on how the data can be exchanged between two different systems. So given that the IT systems also do not have a standard to follow, how this data can be securely transmitted between two systems. So that poses a lot of threats as well, and that gives a lot of opportunity for the attacks to happen. So, and also the ability for the staff to understand the importance of data privacy and how they manage their access to the system and the policies. So when the school implements the policies, how good are the users within the school able to understand the policies and security measures to be able to follow that. How they are as simple, coming back to as simple as how are they remembering their passwords? How are they keeping their passwords safe? When the biggest reason for attacks is you know, the leaking of the passwords of the users. So that's where the attack starts, and that's the simplest way for someone to get access to the system that is in place. Coming to the very important aspect of the today's topic, we have seen the threat. We understood how the current systems are being attacked, and how many records are being stolen by the attackers, and how they are using that data to extract the ransom and also bring down the systems. Now, what are some of the measures that you can put in place to minimize these risks within your control? So we'll look at that in the next couple of slides. So, like we discussed in the previous slides, the most important aspect is the capability of the system that you are currently using. If you are using files to store your data, for example, about 60% of the data that was stolen last year alone was there was no system in place. So this was this 1.7 million records was stolen last year from the one single software called MoveIt. This software was used for transferring files from one system to one device to another device, or simple file management system. So a lot of data, it's very uncomfortable truth, but a lot of data, even if there is systems in place, a lot of data is being managed in the spreadsheets, and these spreadsheets are stored locally in the user systems, and these are sent through the emails to the other users in the system. So one is having a very, very good IT system, and other is how good the IT system is. Is that system providing you everything that you need in terms of capturing the data, sharing the data with other users in the system, and not having to maintain files outside of the system. So is one of the most important aspects that you need to assess is all the security claims that your IT system, your IT vendor, your existing IT vendor, and your IT vendor that you would be choosing next, all the claims that they are coming out with. How do you assess those? It's not an easy assessment, and more often that you may need some external help to be able to assess the IT systems that you're procuring. So there are a lot of guidelines on how do you assess the IT systems. For example, looking at their certifications, looking at how frequently they do the vulnerability testing, looking at the data centers that they store the data, how they are securing their data, their encryption algorithm. So there are a lot of guidelines that you can get hold of. So those guidelines, you need to have a very specific focus on as much focus as you have on the functionality of the new IT system. you also need to focus on the non-functional aspects of the IT systems that you're currently using, and also you would be procuring. So these non-functional aspects such as performance scalability and the security and reliability of the system is extremely important when you identify. So if you have a system currently in place, you would have to have a very periodic plans to assess that and identify the threats. The existing systems that you may have would be obviously enhanced, and new versions are put in place quite often. So you need to have a plan to your own assessment of how secure the system is, whether the policies are correctly configured for your use, whether the users, both the staff as well as students, are educated enough to follow these policies, and to make sure that they identify the threats and come back and report to the IT team within the school. So the enough importance has to be given to assess the IT system. I know there are a lot of emphasis given for assessing whether a system is capable of meeting your functional requirements. There has to be equally enough importance given to assessing the data protection capabilities of the system as well, and what kind of policies the system is allowing you to configure when you start using the system. So the other important aspects of safeguarding the student data. So in the eventuality of data breaches, so we all need to have a comprehensive plan on it's like an emergency drill. So you need to practice, you need to have a plan, you have to have mock drills. If the data is breached, what are we all going to do? How are we going to inform the lock down the systems that are still being attacked? How you are going to respond? How you are going to inform to the authorities? How you are going to restore the system so that you can come back online to be able to continue without a lot of disruption. So you need to have a plan in place for the data breaches, because if you lose the data, for example, if you lose the students' academic data, you would have a lot of difficulty in bringing back that data, putting together the student's academic standing that the student currently has. Also, extremely important to identify if the financial data of the student is lost, the institutions can have a very major impact. So the plan that you will have has to have all these points. In case of a data breach, how we are going to, what is our fallback system that's going to come into place, and how we are going to inform the victims of the data breach, the students and the staff and the parents, and also your regulatory bodies. Every country mandates the breaches be informed to the regulatory bodies. So there has to be a plan. And also another important aspect is when you sign up with an IT vendor, you have to clearly focus on what kind of data sharing agreements that you are allowing your IT vendor to have. For example, if you sign up with an online system that is a SaaS-based system, for example, you need to very clearly focus on who is the custodian of your data. So there are a lot of systems that provide you as part of the agreements that you sign with, a very clear record of what kind of data that these systems are allowed to use for the improving the systems, for example, or for the third-party systems for providing the additional services that you may like. So there are a lot of aspects to the data sharing agreement. So this is also one of the primary source of data leakage. So you have to pay a very close attention to the data sharing agreements that you sign with the IT vendors as well. And also you need to have ongoing vigilance. Like I said, conduct the security audits very frequently. Make sure the systems are given the requirements very clearly when there is a vulnerability identified, and keep the loopholes closed immediately, and have the external or internal cybersecurity champions within your teams who get specialized in identifying and educating the users, some kind of evangelization or champions who are responsible for making sure that the systems that you are using are you have a team that can do the auditing and that can identify these leaks and things like that. So there are a lot of aspects that we discussed, which not even if the system is sometimes even if the systems that you procure are providing these policies and are providing these features related to security. But if the users are not educated enough, if the users are not sensitized about the importance of this, there will be chances of data breach. So that's those are some of the important aspects of how you can safeguard the student data. So that takes to the end of the presentation that I've had. Thank you, Caroline, for this, and back to you.
Now we want to move on to the speakers that we have. We would want each one of you as speakers to share your viewpoints, the good practices, and as an industry leader representing the higher education. Can we start with Professor Dato, MD Gapar, to share his viewpoints from your end, sir?
Okay, thank you, Karin, and I think very interesting overview by Mr. Mouli just now on the overall picture of the data protection and data privacy in overall perspective. I think let me start with a simple analogy first, in MSU particularly. So the process of data collection is started from pre-registration of the student, during the registration, and ongoing process or ongoing practices, accessibility within the student's study time. So whether it's 3 years, for the 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, or up to 5 or 7 years, and depend on the tenure of the student taking the particular course. For basics, and then some students will be extended due to their situation. So what we can see here from what we practice is at every stage, from the pre and the post and the current processes, we do the proper. Definitely, we have the policy how the data protection, and for us, I think in Malaysia, even the others in the education, we follow the Malaysia Personal Data Protection Act. So that is definitely our first reference when you talk about data privacy. So from the university of point of view, So every data that we enter into the system, basic and also the demographic. So if you look from the student data flow, it start with the personal data. So this personal data will be captured before the student register. Maybe we are doing some marketing and so on to get a basic information to do the follow-up. So for every information that we start collecting, definitely we have a declaration by the potential and also the student that they are allow us to use the information for education purpose or for the communication purpose to reach the particular potential student and also the student. So that is the first thing that we protect in terms of data privacy. But we don't collect everything, but we only collect what is required for education purpose. Even the demographic data also, we don't collect everything about the person, but we only use for purpose of we want to assist student during their study, the pathway of study. So that is the first part. The demographic data will be collected as minimum for our purpose of communicating with the student. Then in the life cycle of the student, we will have the student subject registration, student assessment, student payment, and also other monitoring process that we do. And every activity as far as control from the internal usage, so definitely they must be authorized. And the authorization of using the data is within their each person capacity. For example, lecturer can only access the student they are teaching. Or in MSU, we have mentoring system. Then the mentor only be able to access the mentee profile. And also this particular mentor cannot see the account information in terms of that. Only the account people can see. And like assessment, only the lecturer who are teaching the subject can view the assessment, and once endorsed, they can only view only and no updating is allowed after the Senate endorsement. So these are the control that we make to ensure that data is kept in safe. And in terms of data leaks, so we will make sure that all the authentication is fully in place according to the requirement. Like all our system are basically on the database. So we will make sure the database security features is in place for all the data tables, so that only the respective authorized person control at the application level, so that this will be adhere to any accessibility of particular person. So these are the things that we put in until the end. Student will get their transcript and also student will get the result. And even then, when student access, student will only given the access to their own data only, not to other people. In terms of that, I said they can only see. Even if we give the exam result, we don't get student into the database, but we give only prescribed result that for the particular student. Then they can only show the digital the digital result only, which is already in the printed friendly view, not in terms of they can access the particular direct raw data. So that's how we do the protection. And each output will have a watermark to indicate that this is a valid result slip, so that there won't be any tampering happening. Because and each, though it's a digital copy or printed hard copy, we have a watermark, we have a QR code that indicate that this is the data generated by the system. So tampering will be easily detected if something is breached by anybody else to do to view the particular data. So that's how we do the control in terms of authorization and authentication of the data that's stored in our database. Definitely, as mentioned, our database is centralized, but application is is in a pool. So all those common data will only replicated for purpose of recovery. And this will be kept in another storage, which is only the IT manager or the person in charge of the server be able to access. Even other user, the developer also cannot access anytime. They have to get permission to open up back if we want to do a recovery. Particularly maybe the system breakdown, then we need to restore back. So we will get that permission from the IT manager to release, to open for the certain period to do the uploading and restore the particular data. So that's how we control. So it's all stated in our policy, the flow of data and which checkpoint need to be done to make sure the data is privacy of the data is being kept at any time. And any breach will be detected because in MSU, we also have what we call it security operation center. So any particular activity, illegal or unusual activity will be detected by this center. And they will alarm the developer, the end user, that there's something is happening. And good thing that so far there only maybe some attack on the surface. We have been able to protect the inside. I mean, the drilling is not happening so far. And also we know the very common practices people try to act using SQL injection. So that's where we do some testing before the system or module being released. We do the penetration test and then make sure all this SQL injection will not happen within the particular modules. So that's how we go into through in terms of putting and ensuring the issue of data privacy, the security being protected. Because this is very important. We cannot get student result being tampered, student account being tampered, the profile of the student being tampered, and so on. And even if the student itself want to do update, there will be verification. So they're not directly update into the database until the administrator has verified with evidence that they need to update that particular information in the system. So that's overall how, in general, at MSU, we do the data privacy and security within the system, physical and also in the logical environment, which is the database. The network security also we have to put inside because if the network security is not in place, definitely if it's open, people can go into the server. So we have the physical, we have network, we have Wi-Fi, we have database level as well, and also we have the end user authentication and authorization access in terms of accessibility. So this is, but and again, we do not have too many things that people very difficult or slow to access. So that is, I think, in general, what we put in place in terms of our topic of the day, in the data privacy and security in place as far as MSU as a higher education institution, that we want to protect and we want to safeguard the student information and particularly information which are in the digital form. But we also do not neglect data which are not in digital form. Definitely some data being printed out. So this printed information also we control in terms of when it to be released. So there's a limit on that. For example, we only release within the after Senate endorsement. So we give student to download the result within a certain period. After that, we close so that there will be no more reprint and so on. So if they need reprint, then they have to go into the register. That's part of the control that we did for that.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, so that is the general process how we manage the data privacy and security in our digital format in MSU. I think in
Thank
general
you.
that is what
Thank you,
Mouli.
Professor Dato. I think it has been the subject itself is very deep. I think we need a lot of time to discuss, and it's extremely interesting that you shared your viewpoints and insights from your university perspective. Thank you very much for that. I think we are definitely running short of time, so I would like Hemalatha as a Chief Executive of INTI College, what are your thoughts, ma'am, on the subject? We quickly take about 5 minutes each so that, everybody, our speakers have the opportunity to express their viewpoints, the good practices that are being followed by their institutions. Over to you, Hemalatha.
Thank you. So I echo what Professor have just said earlier. So perhaps in order not to repeat what being said by Mouli earlier or shared by Mouli earlier, I would just say what we have been doing, right? So we break our practice into 3 areas. First is from the system perspective. Second is on the organization practice. And the third one is from the customer perspective, right? Or customer awareness or training. So in terms of system, like what Professor mentioned, also the first point of entry of our data of students or customers from the pre-registration, then followed by registration, enrollment, and so on. And all this data is always entered by specific department. So the authority is not given to all departments to collect the data and then key in the data. So it's done by specific department, and only relevant stakeholders or person in charge will have access to it. And any students, right, or parents who actually do the application form, registration, etc., we do get their acknowledgement in terms of PDPA, like what mentioned earlier. So PDPA acknowledgement is very important. So again, it's go back to the customer again. They have to read all the terms and conditions that's written. So they have to acknowledge on the sharing of data. From our side, of course, we will also put in the terms and conditions. We will not share the information. Should we need to share this information out, for example, with ministry and so on, we would be requesting for the students' approval further if, let's say, the information being shared is more than what we have actually had the agreement with the customer or student, right? So the other thing is on the storage for backup purposes. As we store data, the storage will become full definitely. And in order to prevent the loss of data, etc., or whenever any system is terminated, we need to have proper storage systems so that the security, the data security can also be managed. And the other one is actually to identify to have a proper identity management system, like what Professor mentioned also, right? Access is given to only certain people, the right individuals, and once the task is completed, the access is revoked. So for our case, if the access is required for any other personnel, in addition to what the existing or the current practice, then there's an approval process that they have to go through to get their performance managers or the relevant department heads to approve to grant the access. Otherwise, failure to get the access approval, they would not be granted the approval. So there's actually a control and monitoring system to ensure the data is not shared with the others. And the system is also protected by a lot of antivirus, anti-malware, firewall, etc., right? So any attempts, we try our best to monitor and keep everyone updated if there are any latest news. So when it comes to third party, right, vendor that involved, only selected data or the very bare minimum required data is shared with the vendors. And once the job is done, the access is actually revoked. So that's one of the way we prevent loss of data or breach of data. Of course, one of the most important thing that our IT people I'm sure they know that they don't share which model of log or which monitoring system we have in place in our organization. Because if we mention, then definitely that's like opening up to the potential hackers on for them to actually try out on the system that we have. But most importantly, I think the organization practice or governance is very important. So this would be, I think for my role, I will ensure that proper training for staff and students are given in terms of code of conducts and ethics, data privacy, security, and this being given to them periodically, which means whenever there are any latest updates, we will definitely share as an announcement to our stakeholders or especially to our staff so that they're aware what is happening. A lot of trainings on this, right, especially on safeguarding the data privacy, not only of customers, but also of staff are given to them. And in addition to that, we also provide a lot of sharing session with our students on how they can protect their data, especially now, a lot of students use a lot of third-party vendors, which is not part of the campus under the campus purview, but they use that, they buy that for the purpose of learning, right? So we do advise them to make sure that they understand about the data privacy before they approach such vendors or use the application in this platform, because the vendors that we subscribe, we know who are the vendors, and then we only appoint vendors whom are trustworthy. But when it comes to students, there are a lot of platforms available outside, so they're exposed to all these platforms, and we need to educate the students to be very, very careful when they choose any other platforms beside what we offer at our campus. I think in addition to that, I think recovery, Mouli mentioned about recovery, right? So it's very important when something happens, because we can do as much, but if anything, any unfortunate incidents happen, how do we react to it? Like your emergency response must be very good, and you must be prepared. And if you have a proper recovery system, I believe you would be able to at least come out of those breaches very soon without much impact. So I think this would be my sharing for now.
Thank you. Mouli, do you have anything to add? You have to unmute.
I'll summarize towards the end. Thank you, Hemalatha ma'am, for your views and what practices you are currently following. Caroline, we can move on to the next.
Ma'am, Olivia, so we would like to hear as a leader, as a tech leader, representing Multimedia University, what are the best practices are being followed in your institution? Could you please share the challenges and the best practices that could be of use to the audience that are attending the session today?
Thank you, Caroline. Also, thank you everyone for being here. I have actually listened to Mouli, and I'm lucky also to be the third speaker here. I've been collecting all the points here. Mouli has already mentioned some very salient points of data protection for students, and then Prof. Dato as well, Prof. Dato Gapar, also the insights of MSU, how they conduct the data protections, and of course Hemalatha as well on in INTI, how you're actually safeguarding the students' records and their data. In MMU, usually we look into it in 3 stages as well. Firstly, the system. The system itself, for us in Multimedia is our parent body is Telecom Malaysia. So when it comes to data protections, we are very careful and mindful, make sure that there's no breaches of any data protections, and we do comply with PDPA, which is our National Personal Data Protection Act in Malaysia. So the system itself, we have 2 systems. Either we get our selected vendor to develop our system, or we have our inbuilt system, in-house built systems, right, for our students, because we have expertise in the universities to do that for us as, you know, as a Telecom Malaysia's subsidiary universities. Then we look into the second part is the user. User is very important. User here, we have our admin staff. We also have our students. We have our lecturers, not forgetting the parents, right? So every of these users, we may make sure that they understand, starts from the immersion course, that is orientation, when the students comes in, the parents comes in, bringing their students, we will do the immersion course. So PDPDA is one of the introductions that we will let the students be aware of, and they have to sign off a form, which they have to declare consent, right, of giving their information, personal informations like their name, their address, you know, things like this, solely for education purposes. Any more, any less, we wouldn't want, but this is just what we want from them. So to safeguard and also inform them the importance of them giving us the consent. Not just that, if we were to take any photographs of them, we will also ask them if they allow us to take their photographs, right, or to record any of the sessions with their consent, because we are very careful with all this. Yeah. Having said that, there's a lot of classes being conducted these days, and as Mouli pointed out, you know, we are moving towards AI digitalizations. So when we conduct a class, some students would like to record our classes. So we will also inform the students that if in the event they would like to record, they should actually get consent as well. Because a lot of time when they record, they are so naive, I would say, then, you know, they will just put it on YouTube, you know, without knowing that the privacy of some lecturers are actually, you know, the lecturers may not want their lectures to be recorded, vice versa, or some lecturers will record students and forgot to even ask the consent. So these are the users' perspective where we actually have our regulations on that. And of course, the second important, I wouldn't say is important as well, is the governance and policies, right? So in each university, the best practices is always, it falls back to the policy and your guidelines, right? Policy, you can do it very generally so that you do not need to review 4 or 5 years, but guidelines, you can keep changing it. So you must have a general policies, and you have a guidelines, which you can then, you know, revise it as time goes by, maybe, because now we have VR as well, AR, you know, for lectures. So we would like to revise the policy to say that, okay, where is your data protection here? Okay, when you become an avatar, is that it moved to this level, okay, when it comes to VR and AR. Okay, some universities will conduct a virtual reality classes. So then the lecturers will change themselves to an avatar, right? So what is the PDPDA here? How far it can go, right? So all this, it has to be in place in governance, your policy and guidelines. Then the fourth most important is your audit, risk assessment. This is how we see it. In MMU, every quarter of the year, we have our PDPA assessment, and each unit in the universities must identify their potential risks. So every unit has their potential risk, okay? Like say in like technology transfer office, my risk will be in case I forget to file an important IP, intellectual property, for my students, for my staff. So then we lost our intellectual property, or my staff infringe someone's intellectual property. So there is a potential risk here. Or that is a PDPDA non-compliance of the 7 principles stated in the PDPDA. So this is what we have in place. Besides then what you know, Professor Dato has mentioned, Hemalatha has mentioned as well, and also Mouli. These are the things that I sum up that we do. Okay, so the 4 quadrants that we have here is the system, user, governance, and finally risk assessment. So this is how we put our data protection, our students' data protections in place. Of course, not forgetting things like research ethics and all this, I'm putting it into governance policy, like what Caroline says. If I want to share, there's a lot to share, because on the research ethic itself, we also have this policy whereby when you collect the data, all right, if it involve human data and if or involve human experiment or animal experiments, then you have to get we have the Malaysian Research Ethics Committee permission, right? Or if it's just a survey or things like this, then we will assess whether the data is collected, they're 18 years or below. If they're 18 years and below, that 18 years, they can consent. But if it's below, then they need the guardian or the parent's consent in this case. So this is how we look into it. And also, how does the data going to be stored? Yeah. And how long it will be stored? It's all in our forms. So I wouldn't want to go so much into it, because I need to leave some time for Rodelio as well. Thank you very much. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's indeed very, very insightful, talking about the 4 quadrant that university has to look into. Now, I would like to move on to Rodelio Barcenas as the head of ICT project management of University of Asia and the Pacific. How do you take care of responsible data management, the privacy program, and data governance at your university? Could you please share your insights?
Yeah. Thank you, Caroline. I'll be explaining my side with regards to a different flavor, because most of our colleagues are explaining regarding the protection side. I'll be discussing most of some of the details, but not being too technical, just for insights. Okay, so let me share my screen. So, all right. Okay, thank you for inviting me here. Well, I'm actually handling the software development and project management of our institution. And before I start, let me put some disclaimer that my opinions are expressed in talks are on my own, and it doesn't represent the minds and interests of the university. And I'm not speaking in behalf of the university, and my perspective are derived from my years of experience in the IT industry and academia. Okay, so let me start. So I've been working with the software development in our campus. So normally when you talk about this area, it's too technical, no? So I'll just flash something on the screen, but never mind. I'm working on integration of different modules, and then we are trying to digitize the whole campus. Yes, I believe that this is a very important topic, because most of the school are doing also the same. No? Okay, so why do we need to ensure that information systems are secure? Okay, so those probably could be a question that needs to be answered. So I'll post some 3 items here. Like, we're not often aware that we need to think about information security, and information security is not part of our headlines we read in newspaper or media or during coffee breaks. Just imagine this: if you're driving a car with something valuable in it, and you left your car, and you're not talking about the valuable things inside. No? So just imagine if you have an information system and you're not talking about the value of data inside the information system. Yeah, that's really a big problem, because if there will be looters, someone who will get those valuables, yeah, we will be in great trouble. So that's number 1. We need to consider information security. And then another one is the foundational technology we're using today. We're not originally with security as a primary focus. So just imagine the things that you are using right now are, when they designed most of our technology they're using, they're not yet considering security as an endpoint. For example, if you are inventing, for example, a hammer, you might be using the hammer to build homes, right? But you're not talking about using the hammer in a different way, like hurting person or destroying properties, right? So it's similar to that. So I'll give 2 examples. For example, if we will be accessing the web and web pages, or for example, you have a URL, That idea started way back around 1970s, 60s. No, it's a CERN project. The only idea that the only goal there was just to share the research document. So they intended the World Wide Web to be just for sharing of document. But as it goes, it became too complex. They added the media, they added the programming, they added the database, and then they separated the programmers and the designer of the page, and then they created the framework. It became too complex that hackers and attackers are actually doing some things on the foundational aspect. No? So that's why we are having trouble, because the way we designed it, the security aspect was not considered. And then this is also happening. For example, if you are accessing, for example, a website, normally this is what the computer understands, right? And if you are talking about 1960s or 70s, it's impossible to have that kind of database to translate that data. No? So during my time in the 1980s, the highest data drive there was already 40 MB, right? So just imagine the year 1960s, 70s, they don't have those kind of database. So they need to reinvent it, and then they decided to decentralize it. Okay, so if you type in a certain address to your server, and then a certain computer will say, I know him, he's my friend, it's 201.19, so he gives you the IP address. No? So that's the current setup. And then 30 years later, there was this DNS hacking or spoofing. So one of those hackers mimic the DNS, and then when you say the URL, yourserver.com, those DNS will try to say, we know him, and then it could be a phishing attack, and then it can reroute you to the same server, but there's something in place like spoofing you on your connection. Okay, so the last part will be identity theft is a real concern, and the threat actors are increasing in numbers, just like our previous colleague told us. No, so imagine you have a campus network, and you have like for example servers there, and you want to connect it into the internet. So yeah, you connect through an ISP so that your campus user can access the internet, and also the remote user can have access to the campus network, right? So if that's the case, then the hackers comes in. So they can also access from the remote side the campus network. Now, most IT network will insert a firewall in between so that they can ward off this possible threat, or so they can improve their defenses, right? And yeah, firewall is normally a solution. But take note, there are other approach to solving this problem. For the example, the Moonstone Slit gang of North Korea, they're trying to come through the compromised devices. So these guys develop softwares. Unknowingly, it's a fake software. You will be installing it in your cell phones, or you install it in your laptops, and you just don't know that it's a fake application, because these guys are really good. So if the hacker cannot penetrate you on the firewall, imagine if you have 3,000 students or more, including employees, how many percent of those devices entering the campus is already controlled by the threat actors? So you would see some phones, laptops, even laptops, computer with malwares, plugin, application installed. And if we don't have any protection regarding that, then since I'm inside the campus, I can already access the valuable resources inside the campus, right? So that's another approach done by the Moonstone Slit gang of North Korea. Now, if you have already installed the measure like firewall or the campus network, you have secured inside. There is another gang called the Lockbit gang from Russia. So this is a ransomware as a service. So this is what they do. If they cannot hack you from the inside, if they cannot enter you from the outside, maybe you have an outsourced system, like a payroll system. They will try to hack those payroll system, and then they will pretend they have hacked your campus network, and then they will get your personal employee information. Since the personal information found in your campus network is also similar to the payroll system, you give it the access there. Well, some of you might think that it's just okay, but if I call the bank and I'm impersonating you, I can transfer your cell phone numbers. Like if they ask, can you give us a valid email address? Can you give me your cell phone number? Can you? Since I have access to your personal information, you wouldn't know it that I already changed your cell phone number accessing your bank account. So that's, you can extort money from organization. You can extort money from campus users, students, and employees. So this is how the Lockbit gang operates. No? So they have a lot of uh, team members who are trying to hack into the systems. Now, you might be safe in the campus, but when you outsource, maybe you're using, for example, the case of Edmodo. If you're using Edmodo, they were hacked. There were 77 million records compromised, no? And they compromised the data, the email address, password, and username. So you can check this out in the internet. There are a lot of sites already hacked. Okay, and then identity theft is a real concern. So if you heard of botnets of botnet operators, these are computers which are being controlled by hackers. No, so they exploit all of the computers in the cloud. So if you're wondering to, for example, upload your services in the cloud, you design a software application, please be informed that there are a lot of exploited servers out there that can compromise also your applications, right? So yeah. So for the technical guys here who are attending, I know you're familiar with this one. This is a block IP address. So it shows here cloud servers already vulnerable. Okay. And then they can also hack you on the router side. Okay. And even your Wi-Fi access points can be hacked through ARP spoofing. So the routers inside the campus can be hacked from the outside. If you're securing your servers, maybe you have to take a look at your routers because some of them might be already compromised and they are being controlled from the outside, and they can have access to your campus network and anything. Okay, so the last one is these are just my simple tips. I cannot disclose much of the things we're doing because I'm already disclosing what we are do in terms of security. So one thing to think about is the zero trust framework. You have to take a paradigm shift, like thinking that you don't trust anyone in terms of data. No, so this is where the two-factor authentication comes in, and then and the many technologies that you can probably use to validate yourself. No, so take the paradigm shift. And since you want to protect your information, you have to perform asset discovery, like identify the critical asset. In that way, you can secure it because you cannot secure what you cannot see. Okay, so critical is the asset discovery. And then you should lessen the surface attack area. So most of us are uh, using the default settings. Just keep the hackers guessing. Don't use the default setting. For example, if you're using the port values, or for the IT guys here, if you're using default setting names, no, so don't use the default setting. You, for the SQL injection, you can add additional hashes for the URL based transaction. So this will lessen the surface attack because they will be discouraged, no. And then you should have an anomaly detection mechanism, like are there login during 2 to 3 a.m. or their attempts for brute force attack, like who is trying to log in and failed, how many times are there brute force trying to log on your system. And then with regards to the data transfer, this is sometimes not considered, but we have to also measure the data. We have to know the average data transfer, because if there is something unusual on this, maybe the hacker already gained access to your server and then they are installing something. You can see it there on your data transfer packets, and then you should be able to identify the normal and anomalous users. So you have to be good in this anomaly detection. And to help you out with that, you have to set up your honeypots, honey nets. This will visualize the log reports. You have to convert the usual system logs to a demographic database, so that it will be easier for you to visualize what is really happening, and you capture what is okay and not okay, and then compare it, and then visualize everything. Not read it, but visualize. Reading the logs is easy, but visualizing it is a different thing, no? So you have to do a mechanism for that. And then, since we are not sure when our system will be compromised, there should be a facility to do this, the backup and restore. So the information system should be restored within minutes or hours, no? We have to make sure that we can, if there's a breakthrough, normally we shut down the system and restore another a clean version of the system, so that we can already thwart the hackers. So there should be countermeasures in place, and part of it is the security audits. And then in the Philippines, we have the Data Privacy Act of 2012. You should be applying for this for your institution, and then you should check on the data privacy provision, the non-disclosure agreements, and other things that's important for protection of the information. Okay, so for the end of my slide, for something to exist, it must be perceived. So my talk is just telling everyone that information security concern really exists and it's for real. And we have to take this seriously. And yeah, so there's no quick solution here. There's no application we can install and solve the problem. It's really something we have to study, work with professionals and someone with experiences with information security, and then work. This cannot be secured alone by a certain company. This is something to be discussed further. And I think every institution has a different setup, and nothing fits everyone. So we have to start somewhere, discuss, and yeah, move forward regarding this one. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodelio. Very, very interesting presentation, I must say. I think many of our attendees are saying it's very beautifully explained in a very layman terms. That's the feedback I'm getting. And of course, there are quite a lot of questions that are coming in Q&A. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Mouli to just kind of summarize the discussion. Of course, we have another 10 minutes to go. What we will do is once he summarizes, then we will take a few questions and then probably do a poll after that and then wind up the session. Yeah, over to you, Mouli.
Sure. Thanks, Caroline. Thanks everyone for sharing your practices and your thoughts on this very important subject. To summarize what we have discussed in the last 30 minutes, the very important points from Professor Dato and Hemalatha ma'am and Olivia ma'am, and thanks for a very detailed presentation by Rodelio. The thoughts are the emphasis on the importance of the threat that we're all facing. It is like Rodelio mentioned, it is real. I don't think it's a subject that can be ignored by any of us. And also it is not an easy install one software and become very secure. It's not that, and a lot of policies, a lot of awareness, and a lot of day-to-day implementation of these policies is required. So to summarize some of the most important points that were highlighted, the collect only what is required, collect information that is required from the students and the parents, and most importantly, get their consent when you are collecting the information, so that they are aware of how we are going to use this information and how long you are going to keep this information with you. Like Olivia ma'am said, when you are in a digital university, when you are capturing pictures, when you are doing your laboratory sessions of videos and stuff like that, how these videos are being shared, it's extremely important to get the consent of both the faculty as well as the students, and how you are going to make use of this data, how long you're going to preserve this data. So collect only what is required, and make sure that the consent and acknowledgement is practiced every step of the data collection, wherever you are collecting the data. And the next important aspect is the access controls. So how important is it to provide access to the data only for what is required? For example, if you have a faculty who has access to the system, the faculty should not be able to see the data like accounting data, for example, or the marketing related data. Faculty should be able to see the data that is related to the students' academic standing and their learning profile. So it is very important to minimize the surface area, what the faculty can access, what each user, each customer in the domain can access. So that's a very important aspect. And also use the antivirus and anti-malware, and keep upgrading that. Make sure that these tools are up to date, and you maintain those within your networks. And also, like Hemalatha ma'am said, when you are sharing the data to other vendors, share only the bare minimum data that you need. For example, if you have integrated a payment gateway, and sometimes some payment gateways would need a lot of data, you will have to understand what data from your perspective is required for a third-party system to be able to function. So you have to make sure that those agreements are in place, and negotiate to share only the minimum data that you think is a right thing to do with the consent of the customer. And proper training and awareness was emphasized by everyone. So without proper training, awareness, and periodically conducting these assessments to make sure that everyone in the ecosystem understands the importance of this, that's a very important point. The campus network, how do you secure the campus network, your firewalls, and making sure that the devices that are being used inside the campus, how you are going to manage those devices, so that the unwanted softwares are not already installed into these devices. So when they come into your So, right, like Rodelio mentioned, you can have a firewall for preventing external access into your network. But how do you make sure the devices that are already in the campus, that come into the campus every day, does not carry the software that is going to be a threat to within the network? So, and a very, very important point, you need to have the framework, a zero trust framework built into the place. So this framework will identify how do you trust someone that's accessing the system? How do you make sure that you have multiple controls like multi-factor authentication? So that's like one of the basic requirement in the current scenario. You do not trust the first level of authentication. You make sure that you request the user to additionally provide an extra layer of authentication to make sure that it's the real user that's coming into the system. So I would like to end the summary by saying, just repeating what Mr. Rodelio said. It's real, and we all have to make sure that we have practices in place to stop the threat. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mouli, for summarizing beautifully the session today. I think we have lots of questions on the Q&A, but before we could just jump into the questions, let me have a small poll launched. Azza, can you launch the poll, please? Appreciate if you could answer the poll question. We'll just give 5 minutes. Okay, just take a few seconds to answer. So we have some questions. I'm going to see we have 34 questions. There are a few questions about getting the recording of the session. Yes, we shall share for all the attendees. And we also have promised a certificate at the end of the session. Yes, we will send out the certificate. We have all your email addresses and the names, and we shall send it across. But I have a few questions from the attendees. We have a overwhelming response in terms of attendees numbers. 210 people are currently on live. So I'm going to just address it to the panel. You can feel free to take the question. One is how to ensure that student data is secured. What can we do to empower digital right among students related to overcoming data breaches and cybersecurity challenges? I'm sure you must have addressed this. Would anybody like to take this question?
Maybe I can start with a short answer to this question.
Yeah.
On how to ensure student data is secured. I think the first one is students should not share their username and password, and they have to be follow the policy like in MSU. We said within 6 months or after 6 months, if the student don't change the password, we will block them from access. And they have to request for change password to the admin, or they can do self forgot password option, and then they will give you the process how to change the password. The other one is so when you talk about password, I think make sure the password are difficult to remember by others. It should be remembered by you, but otherwise you forgot it. But make sure that I think our practice is to have at least a word of capital there, a small letter is there, lowercase. You have special character one, we have numbers. So there must be a combination of this so that it will be difficult to be tempered and not to be shared to others, lah, even the girlfriend or boyfriend. And how to empower digital right among students related to overcome the risk. Okay, as part of the answer in the question number one, so the thing is now, for example, when you say empowering the breaches is to make sure all the access right given to each individual stakeholder is being followed according to the policy. May not individually have to adhere to that policy, no sharing, no giving password, because at times happen that a person give their full ID and access to another person. When there is a database, we will attack the owner of the username, not the person who do the job. So this is a conflict. So after investigating, then actually during that time, this person A given the ID to person B to do the work, and then they do something else which are not right. So I think that is the thing we have to look into it. And in terms of what we call it, the data breaches, it has to be not only focus on the system, because system need to be upgraded. So probably if there is a database upgrade, version must be up to date, because certain database have improved their security features. But that the system from the developer point of view, from the software development. But again, the stakeholder, the end user also has to have that culture of security and privacy being practiced, and also having the what do you call it, the sharing has to be restricted. So you cannot just open uh, even in the campus network. Every sign on need to be enter their identity, because we don't just give Wi-Fi to the student or to the stakeholder, but if they are not regular user, so we have a time frame. Let's say you are not active for 1 week. So after that, the connection will be disconnect from access. So they have to get permission again to reinstate the access right. So that what I can answer in short for the two
Thank you.
questions.
Thank you very much, Dato. So next question, I'd like to address it to Mr. Rodelio. How do you conduct a privacy impact assessment within your university? How often do you conduct the said assessment? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Currently, my unit is in the ICT, and our data privacy office is a different detached unit. So normally they are the one performing the audit. So you cannot, in terms of ICT, the DPO cannot be from the ICT unit, because that will be conflict of interest. No? So someone should be outside looking for these possible breaches that's happening inside the campus. No? So it has to perform independently. Now, with regards to audit, it should be performed uh, depending on how much security level you want to implement. At least in a year, you are performing an audit. But if you want to really secure your system, you have to do regular audits. I don't know the frequency, and then whatever breaches that can be possible breaches that can be discovered, it has to be communicated to everyone. So if you want to be more secure, then conduct more audits regularly. And yeah, so I know this is hard, because the first thing you need to consider this is the asset risk discovery first. You need to know which asset are supposed to be secured, and that is where your problem is coming in. So if you don't know the assets that you have, then it will be difficult to perform audits. Okay, so yeah, so
Okay.
I cannot say anything about the practices of our DPO, because I'm from the different unit in terms of software development. Yes.
There is another question which from Jeffrey asking, in tertiary schools, because students are already adults, do you allow parents to access information of the students, that is grades? Anyone can take, or if Rodelia could answer, would also be good.
Okay. Okay. Actually, the data privacy. Usually before when I joined the current institution that I'm working now, we used to send grades via the snail mail. So we have it mailed to the doorstep of the parents. But since there is this data privacy being implemented now since 2012, we cannot do that anymore because the data belongs to the student, and it cannot be disclosed to anyone, right? So some might ask that that is a problem because I want to see the grades of my child. Now, actually, the data privacy just place the security measure, and those concerned like the kids don't want to show your grade to you. It's an internal problem between you and your son. They can show it in another way, right? So yeah, I think it's difficult, but yeah. So for elementary student, normally the parents are accessing it, but when you go at a certain age, they will be not accessible anymore. It depends now on the student if they want to share it to their parents or not. So I think the data privacy is not an issue for that. It's an internal thing that's have to be resolved by the parent and the student.
Right. Thank you. Another question is how to handle the proxies/VPN being used by students in any institution to break the firewall security gates. And added to that question is like certain students may crack the SSL and can have access to the sensitive information of the other students. How to handle the situation?
I think that's too technical to answer here, but
Mouli, would you like to add more to that?
yeah.
You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. So breaking of any network devices is possible depending on what kind of rules that are implemented and how up to date those rules are. If you have a firewall, if you don't have enough rules put into the firewall, and if you are not monitoring those attempts, like Rodelio mentioned in his presentation, how do you identify before the actual attack? There are many ways you can identify there is going to be a possible attack by monitoring unusual activity, like at certain times that you're not expecting access, but there is access from certain regions or certain times. So there are a lot of rules that you can add into your network configurations. So anytime, so just adding the rules and leaving it there is also not going to help. So you'll have to monitor anyone trying to breach those rules. So that's how you keep adding more and more rules to improve the security. And cracking the SSL is possible. So there are a lot of advanced technologies now to be able to pin the SSL certificate. So you cannot break in between. So again, yes, it comes down to how secure the software that you are using is. If the IT system that you are using does not have enough secure policies implemented into it, it is possible to break. The only way to do that is to have those proper security mechanisms implemented into the IT system that you're using. Yeah.
Okay, and one more question. I think there are quite a bit. I don't think we are having the time to go through all the questions. One last question I'm going to take, after which we will conclude the session, and then the rest of the answers we would probably mail it across to you. To all the attendees, I'd like to confirm that the recording of the session will be shared with you all. And if there are any questions, please feel write to us, and we shall respond personally to you based on the email IDs that you have given. Also, I'd like to add that Camu has a presence in Malaysia and as well as in the Philippines. We are represented by our partners HWD in Malaysia and ITSM Corporation at Pasig City, the Philippines, we have a team of product specialists, implementers, business consultants, and domain experts are being placed at the local locations. So please do feel free to reach out to us in case if you're looking at an edtech software for your institution. And also, like the last question I want to ask is ISO certification such as ISO 27001 and GDPR compliance important to information security? Mouli, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, for example, ISO 27001 is a certification that that has the policies governing from the recruitment of a personnel building your IT software that you're going to use. So for example, you sign up with a vendor, and what are the rules that are governed by the vendor for the people that are building the software is governed by ISO 27001, and also how your data is secured, what kind of agreements do your IT vendor maintain internally to be able to protect your data that you are trusting and giving to your vendor to be able to manage it for you. So not only having a secure system, but end of the day, the system is managed by a set of people. So if there is no trust, there are no policies, there are no consequences for breaching. If these are not in the agreement, if these are not clearly practiced, that's going to be a problem as well. So ISO 27001 is one such certification that helps in bridging these gaps and coming out with the policies to make sure that doesn't happen. And GDPR is very, very important. We talked a lot about consent in the last 1 hour. So how the data is protected and how important it is to let know the customers of what data you are collecting and the purpose of the collection of data. For example, if you are asking the email to be provided or a phone number to be provided, why are you asking that and how long are you going to keep that information is extremely important. So GDPR and ISO 27001 are very, very important aspects that can give you some kind of comfort when you're trying to look for a software. So that can provide you a lot of tick boxes into the list of things that you need to look for. Yeah.
One last question, Mouli. What are the best practices you can share in the management of security of personal devices used at work, especially those brought in and out of campus?
Yeah. So the having some kind of a device management, managed devices. So there are a lot of software solutions that are available. So if anyone can bring a device into your network, into school's network, and they are allowed to connect to the network, you can mandate them to have a software that can control what software that is running in that device. So there are a lot of software systems, tools that are available currently. Even the simple antivirus softwares currently provide where you can list down the applications that you allow, whitelist and blacklist. So anything that you add into the blacklist, those applications, when they have installed in their devices, they will not be able to connect to the network that is a secure network. So there are a lot of such tools, and that area is very advanced now. So implementing those tools and making sure that those rules are enhanced every day. When there is a new threat identified, you will have to add that into your blacklisted applications and enhance those rules. That will avoid that'll simplify the device management aspect of it.
Thank you, Mouli. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all our speakers, Rodelio, Professor Dato, Olivia, Olivia, and Hemalatha, for taking the time out to be a part of the session and sharing your useful insights. And like I said, the subject is deep and we need much more time to deep dive into it. We look forward to having many more sessions in the future. Like I said, we shall share the recordings of the webinar to everybody. Once again, on behalf of Camu, I'd like to extend a warm thank you to everybody and have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.